All right, Greg, we're back. Let's talk NFC East football. You tell me why the division is going to be decided this Sunday night.
All right, so obviously the NFC East not the most talented division in the NFL,
Hmm.
but certainly one that feels like it's in a two-horse race situation. Washington pretty much out of it, tanking and throwing Jay Gruden out with the bathwater. The Danny Dimes experiment has been fun while it lasted, but the Giants have showed that they're not serious contenders this year, obviously, and they lack any sort of real defense. That's where I think that both teams going into this Sunday night, the Cowboys and the Eagles, you're talking about two 3-3 teams coming off pretty horrendous losses. I mean, the Cowboys'
Mm-hmm.
loss to the Jets is just almost unfathomable if you're a Cowboys fan. The Eagles' loss, more understandable, knowing that the Eagles' secondary stinks. And the defense, from an overall standpoint, also actually stinks. So I think with these two teams going head to head, this game is a control your own destiny sort of situation. You take the upper hand in the division with a win here, and I think it's going to dictate and lead to the team. The team that wins is going to be the one that takes it down at the end of the season. I really believe that. I think this game matters a lot more than most when you talk about a Week 7 matchup.
My argument to that is very simple. It's week 7, and we're talking about two 3-3 teams. This is not a 4-2 team and a 2-4 team. So effectively, it's a 3-game lead in the division. It's two 3-3 teams. There is a lot more. We have not played one half of this year's NFL season yet. Plenty of
Haven't played a
time.
quarter of it.
Plenty of time. I don't know how I feel about this game in general. I don't envy the folks who have to come up with a line for this. I saw Bovada has the Cowboys minus 2.5, and it feels like
Sounds about right.
this is an incredibly difficult game for me to place a line on because of all of the question marks about who's going to play, who's not going to play. It looks like Nigel Bradham is certainly going to be out for Philadelphia, but we don't know a heck of a lot more than that. We don't have certainty about Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills' return to practice this week. We don't have certainty about Deshaun Jackson. We don't have certainty about even Timmy Jernigan. They're saying he's very close. We don't know if it's going to be this week or the week after that he comes back. And then they're equally injury riddled. Lael Collins and Tyron Smith came back to practice today, but neither one of them's anything close to 100%. Zach Martin missed practice today, but he's expected to play this weekend, despite the fact that he's going to be hurt. Michael Gallup's been banged up. Amari Cooper looks very questionable to play this weekend. Randall Cobb's up in the air. I don't know. I need to know who's actually playing before I know who's going to win this game.
I mean, honestly, though, deciding on who's going to win the game is extremely tough because if the Eagles play like they did against Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins and Thielen and Diggs, the Eagles could get blown out again. I mean, I know Dallas's offense doesn't have as many weapons as the Vikings, but Ezekiel Elliott's still very good. Amari Cooper, even at 75%, can probably beat Rasul Douglas. That's just my guess.
Doubt it.
Michael Gallup has been good. I mean, this game's a very tough matchup. Also, when you start talking about the division, I mean, getting the Eagles to a 3-0 division record is huge. The Cowboys, they're the only other competition. The Eagles need this win not only for the division, but really for their season hopes. I mean, you're talking about running into the Bills, Bears, Patriots in the next 3 games after that, with a bye mixed in after the Bears. Then Seahawks coming off of that Patriots game. That's a murderer's row of teams. I know the Bears' offense stinks, but their defense is top tier. The Bills' offense also probably stinks, but again, a very, very tough defense. The Patriots we've seen. The Seahawks we've seen. Whereas the Cowboys, you're looking at the Giants, then a bye week. A bye week after the Eagles, then a Giants game, a Vikings game, a Lions game. Those are three very winnable games for Dallas. I think this game holds a lot more weight than you're giving it just because it's Week 7.
Yeah, and also I forgot to mention Jason Peters obviously not playing, and Andre Dillard will get his first legitimate NFL start. Look,
I'm pretty confident Jason Peters retired like 4 years ago.
Oh, man. I love JP, and I hope he's on the coaching staff the moment he's ready to give it up. But he gets hurt every single game. Now, I know, look, PFF is far from the be-all, end-all when it comes to NFL rankings, but they do a decent job. At least there's something there. There's a science behind it. They have Peters as the number 10 ranked offensive tackle in football even this year, so clearly we still want him in the lineup over Dillard. I don't know. It's a shame. I want that guy to do well, and he's too big. He has gotten too old for his body to hold up. You know, and I'm sure you've heard it too. I get this stuff out here in California. You're in Pennsylvania. I'm sure you hear the rumors. Like the biggest secret in the Philadelphia Eagles organization is that nobody actually knows what Jason Peters' true weight is at this point because he hasn't been on a scale in like 4 years.
Yeah.
I bet you he's like 360.
It's not great. It's not great whenever you can basically just pencil in at least once a game you're going to hear the sideline reporter. It doesn't matter who it is or what broadcast. You're going to hear them go, Jason Peters exited the game just a few minutes ago, and they say it's like a thigh contusion, and he's questionable to come back in.
Yeah.
Like that's every game now.
He is questionable, and the reason is he is old and fragile at this point.
Yes.
Great football player, but yeah, it's time to move on for JP after this season. Thank God that we have an offensive weapon like Miles Sanders to help the offense. I know you're a giant Miles Sanders fan. Nothing but a supporter.
Honestly,
yeah.
If we just line him up outside and let him just run and catch the ball, I'm fine with Miles Sanders. I just don't run him anymore.
I've come to the conclusion that Miles Sanders is our version of Duke Johnson.
I think he's just our best receiver. I think he's our version of, like a solid slot guy.
Well, thank God for that, because the Eagles decided they were going to pick J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over the rapidly falling DK Metcalf. DK is a guy who would look pretty perfect in the Eagles' offense right now, an offense that is just desperate for a guy who can actually run past people. I saw a crazy stat, and I want to bring this up. I think I can find it pretty quickly. An absolutely crazy stat about Philadelphia is that Carson Wentz, here you go. In his career, when playing with a legitimate speed receiver, and this is Torrey Smith and Deshaun Jackson in this case, Carson Wentz has a 12-2 record. 12-2. He had in 14 games. He has 3,609 passing yards, 36 touchdowns to 7 interceptions.
That's incredible.
How does I really do think very highly of Howie Roseman. I think he gets a little more credit than he deserves because he's such a good contract guy. And I think people overlook that there have been some weird decisions made in the draft. But I don't know how you go into a season knowing that the NFL is a passing league, knowing the value of a speed receiver for an offense, and relying on a 32-year-old Deshaun Jackson to stay healthy. Now, Jackson has been relatively healthy throughout his career. He'll miss a couple of games here and there, so the expectation is, he wouldn't miss this many. Bad luck, whatever. But how do you not have a second speed receiver? How do you make a mistake like picking Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf? I don't understand.
I'm not necessarily ready to give up on Arcega-Whiteside.
He can't get on the field in front of Mac Hollins.
But if you remember, before the sports hernia, Mac Hollins was that speed guy who would get open downfield, and his touchdowns were 40 to 50 yarders when he scored. I mean, that sports hernia really kind of derailed Mac Hollins' development.
He was a fourth-round pick, though. He was a fourth-round pick, and he was drafted to be a special teamer.
Sure, that's fine, but I mean, Mac Hollins has been around for a while, and there's a comfortability factor with him, whereas Arcega-Whiteside's more of a route guy. He wasn't a speed guy at Stanford. I think their thought process is he was going to be a guy that could come in and run from the slot and not necessarily have to stretch the field, but be able to be reliable, and he just hasn't been that way. And also, the DK Metcalf thing, there were so many people down on him, and there's a reason why he slid. I don't necessarily blame Howie for passing on him. And the fact is that everybody was kind of wrong. Seattle took a chance, and they've hit a pretty nice jackpot. It's hard to blame Howie in that exact situation.
Okay, well, how about blaming Howie for the fact that
no corners?
And by the way, I do think that Andy Reid screwed us a little bit here. I do think the Eagles were going to pick Mecole Hardman, and they panicked a little bit and took Arcega-Whiteside. Hardman went one pick in front of the Eagles at 56. But how do you justify the fact that you draft a replacement for 29-year-old Alshon Jeffrey in Arcega-Whiteside, ignoring a 32-year-old Deshaun Jackson? He's fine, but let's get a replacement for this. Let's get a replacement for this 29-year-old. And by the way, I mentioned, so Hardman goes 56, Arcega-Whiteside goes 57. You want a speed guy? Paris Campbell, I know he's been hurt, but Paris Campbell goes 2 picks later. Maybe the fastest receiver in the draft last year. Andy Isabella's had a hard time getting on the field for Arizona, so we'll forgive that. He goes 62. Metcalf goes 64. Deontay Johnson, who has been a nice little find for Pittsburgh, goes 66. Jalen Hurd, who the 49ers absolutely love, goes 67. And then a guy named Terry McLaurin goes 76. So I'm looking at conservatively 5 receivers better than Arcega-Whiteside, who went within the next 20 picks.
Yeah, it's not great. It's a hard pick to defend. I mean, it's a really hard pick to defend in this situation. I mean, the team overall is frustrating, though. I mean, I think that the big balls Doug thing.
Yeah, it's got to stop.
I think it's starting to go a little too far. Like, it's fun, it's cool, like it's great in the Super Bowl when you run the Philly special and it works. It's not great when you're down by 2 touchdowns going into halftime and you fake a field goal for no reason, and Jake Elliott's trying to throw for a first down when you have no timeouts in the middle of the field with 20 seconds left.
Let's talk about that.
It's so stupid.
Let's talk about the fact that if he would have converted that pass to Dallas Goedert, who was the only receiver who could have caught the pass, then Jake Elliott, our kicker, would have had to take the team up to the line and spike the ball because we couldn't stop the clock otherwise.
Yeah, it's just an awful idea, an awful play. Unless you thought you were going to catch him completely off guard and Goddard scoring on that play, you can't run that. You just can't. It's one of those things where you just, as a fan, you're like, guys, stop overthinking it. Stop buying into the hype. And then you turn around, you look at the Cowboys. The Cowboys hate their coach. I think that's plain and simple. I think losing to the Jets, Darnold coming off missing 4 games or whatever it was with mono, because I know they had the bye mixed in. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, this is horrendous. I don't even know. Like, I know you could say whatever trap game they're looking forward to the Eagles game, but no, the Cowboys were 3-0 and now they're 0-3. And the offense has looked completely inept. The defense has been even worse. I mean, that Packers game was a drubbing. If there's not a heavy dose of Jordan Howard to start this game against the Cowboys, Doug Peterson should fire himself and Mr. Groh on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I want to go back. I agree completely. And also Corey Undon, who is the defensive backs coach, who I don't understand how he still has a job. Every single defensive back just gets worse when he gets here. But I want to get back to this draft for a second. Miles Sanders 53, Arcega-Whiteside 57. Now, if this was me and I'm making these picks, Mecole Hardman's an Eagle at 53, and then at 57, I'm not gonna look at this with and say I would have been smart enough to take Terry McLaurin. I wouldn't have, but either Chase Winovich or David Montgomery would be Philadelphia Eagles with that 57 pick. And I feel like that's a hell of a lot better than Miles Sanders, a running back who can't run, and Arcega-Whiteside, a receiver who can't get on the field.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles draft. I don't think they draft skill position guys very well. It just has never been a strong suit of theirs, and it continues. And again, you know my opinion on Miles Sanders, and we see it every week. All you have to do is run straight. Like, run forward. Instead, there's cuts. You're trying to break everything outside. It's just there's times where you just scratch your head and go, how did you get this far? By not just running forward. Hit a hole.
Sheer athletic ability. That's it. He was more athletic than the guys around him in college and high school.
Yeah. And I loved Arcega-Whiteside. I liked the pick. I watched a lot of Pac-12 football.
I did not.
And I still have, even despite moving back to the East Coast. I'm very excited for two terrible teams in UCLA and Stanford later this evening that I'll be flipping back and forth to. And maybe it's because I really saw a ton of his highlights prior to the draft, and when I saw the name pop up, I was excited. I think that we have to cut him a tiny bit of slack. And we have to see what we can do here with him as we go. And I'm not ready to completely throw him out the window just yet.
By the way, earlier you talked about, if the Eagles play like they did against the Vikings, then they could get destroyed by the Cowboys. Well, let's look at common opponents here. And I know the Eagles didn't play a Sam Bradford-led Jets team. But the Eagles,
Sam Bradford, Sammy Sleeves.
Can I tell you what? I can't stop doing that. I can't stop.
It's a San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers thing. I hear you.
Yeah, I can't stop saying Sam Bradford when I'm talking about quarterbacks. Without Sam Darnold. For the record, they also didn't have Sam Bradford. But without Sam Darnold, but the Eagles win this game 31-6, and then the Cowboys come in and lose 24-22. So that's the common opponent here. I think a lot of this is going to have to do with who's playing and who's not. I need one of those tackles to not play so that this defensive line can finally start getting some pressure. I mean, they've gotten pressure in literally only that Jets game with the 10 sacks. It's been the only game where they've gotten consistent pressure on the quarterback. I don't know. It worries me.
I need Amari Cooper not to play.
That would be great too. And if Randall Cobb missed as well, and we could just because this Eagles run defense is outstanding. So if we could just focus on stopping Ezekiel Elliott, then I think that's a very winnable game. But I don't know.
Where has the pressure on the quarterback gone from the Eagles' front seven?
Well,
it doesn't exist unless they're sending 8 guys.
The numbers say that they're amongst the NFL leaders in pressuring the quarterback, simply not getting to the quarterback. So
it doesn't feel that way.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. But I think it's one of those things where you only notice it when they're getting sacks rather than getting pressures. I want to stay with the Jets for a second. Jets Patriots on Monday night. Bovada's got the Jets plus 10 at home. Who do you like there?
You don't make money betting against the Patriots.
Right.
That's a thing. They've covered many a large spread this season. But this Darnold resurgence has me in on the Jets. I think I take the points at home.
Wow.
It's tough to say. It really is. But the Jets offense looked different. I mean, they just – I know they hit on some big plays, and obviously the 94-yard pass to Robbie Anderson certainly, is a big spark. But that first half, that Jets offense looked a lot different. I think the Patriots still definitely win the game, but I think it's a little bit too close for New England's comfort.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we're running a real risk of this show getting way too long.
Away from us?
Yeah. It's been away from us. There's no confusing that, but getting too long. So let's take our second break. We'll be right back.